JavaScript SEO and Dollhouses with the absolutely amazing Kristina Azarenko joining us here today with Ulrika Viberg and Vahan Petrosian. It is fantastic to have you guys here. I'm so stoked. How is everybody?
Well, personally, I'm good. I had some construction going on in my building today, so I kept my fingers crossed that they finished, and they have finished. It seems so. So I'm good.
Awesome. How are you going, Ulrika?
All good in Sweden as well. It's almost midnight here.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, super fun. And I followed the whole session today, and so good talks. Plenty of learnings everywhere.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. How about you, Vahan? How are you doing?
Well, not quite well. Sorry about that, because I found that I have a COVID. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow.
How are you feeling? I mean, are you okay?
Not so well. So I have found that in one night my lungs were affected by 40%.
Oh gosh!
Wow.
I was taken to the hospital, and immediate intensive therapy was assigned. So in 2 days I did recover a lot. So you see me now here.
Wow. Rain, hail, shine, or COVID, Vahan will continue.
That's impressive. That's really impressive. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It just took 1 day, one night to affect 40% of lungs. I don't smoke. I don't have any health issues. So it was like instantaneous.
Right. Well, I think that's some sage advice to social distance, wear your mask outside, and and be responsible. Let's take that and let's now think about JavaScript. Kristina, I'd love you to be able to share your slides because I'm so excited, and also to see the Dollhouses as well.
Yeah, just a few words. I watched most of the sessions today, and specifically our latest session, and I really loved that. It really ties in really well with mine. And if you watched her session, you will see many things which are basically the same advice, which is amazing. And if you haven't, check this out. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
I think the whole time I was just triggered, being like, yes, oh God.
Right?
It's too real.
Right. Okay. Technical check. Do you see my slides?
Yes, can see the slides.
Amazing. That's expected behavior. Okay. I'm Kristina Azarenko, and I'm going to talk about JavaScript, SEO, and Dollhouses. And some of you might be wondering why Dollhouses, and you'll find out in a few seconds. So first of all, I'm an e-commerce and technical SEO consultant, and I help businesses thrive online. I have the SEO Challenge course for people who want to learn no BS SEO, and I'm also a quarantine Dollhouses builder. So this is an example. This is a candle holder, which I really loved. I built it from, different parts, and it came to be really good. But then I placed it into a dollhouse, which is a good thing to do, right? Because the candle holder was for the dollhouse. But then the question is, where did the candle holder go? The dollhouse looks good, but the candle handle is not there, right? And there is the simple truth, which is applicable both to candle holders and to the websites. Even the best things in the world need the way to be found. And this is especially true for your website and page elements. If you want your website to be seen by people, to get traffic from Google, the pages of your website need to be found. And also the page elements, especially critical elements, they need to be crawled and indexed by Google as well. And don't let JavaScript ruin it, because it happens too often. And a sneak peek of what I'm going to cover today. First of all, bad examples about JavaScript SEO. Actually, I had 3 examples, but I had to cut this a little bit to make sure that I'll fit in the time. So there's going to be only 1 example, but my SlideShare presentation is going to have all 3 examples. So check it out afterwards. I'll share it on Twitter. Then I also share some theory, because you can't understand what's going on with JavaScript if you don't know theory at all. And I also show how to use JavaScript the right way, debug tools that you can start using right now, today, or that you have been using maybe, and also the summary. Everybody loves good summary, right? So why JavaScript is dangerous in the first place? I really loved this question that I accidentally found on Reddit, and here's some person is asking, after designing the website in React, and React.js is a framework, is a JavaScript framework, website traffic has dropped drastically. And this person is asking, what's the reason behind that? And I really love the first answer, because it was basically, man, you just replied yourself in your question. You used React.js. And when I say that, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're using React.js or any other JavaScript framework, your website is going to lose traffic. It just means that if you don't have any SEO considerations in place, then you can be faced such a situation. This is my dog, by the way. So here is a bad example about JavaScript SEO. This is the website which was switched to React.js, and this is not the website from the Reddit thread. This is another website I did an audit for, and they didn't have any consideration of SEO. So as you can see, this is a section of the website, and they basically killed it completely. And everything is wrong with this example. First of all, URLs are not crawlable. Secondly, images were not crawlable. Title tags were the same for each and every page of the website. And as a result, as Google couldn't see the content, as Google couldn't differentiate the pages even by title tags because they were the same, Google canonicalized each and every page of the internal page of this website to the home page. So yeah, this company basically killed this website. And I'm going to show you how not to be like that. But first, some theory. Here is a quick overview of how Google, how the process of indexing works on the Google side. By the way, I linked the source of this image below the image, so you can go check it out afterwards. And there is also a video by Martin Split, who is really good at explaining such things. So it's hard to do this better than Martin Split, so go check out that video. But in general, in a nutshell, Google indexes the pages in 2 different waves. So first of all, it indexes the initial HTML, and then it goes back and indexes the rendered HTML. What you need to do to know about that is when you have lots of JavaScript, and especially more JavaScript than like normal HTML content, indexing of your pages can take longer than it should, right? And also a few things about JavaScript SEO that you need to really understand before we go further. First of all, Google doesn't interact with your content. It means that Google doesn't click your pages. Google doesn't click buttons, for example, doesn't click pop-ups, etc., etc. So it means that you don't need to rely on Google to take any actions on your website in order to see some of the content. Then Google doesn't scroll. So, for example, if you have an infinite scrolling page, and it doesn't have any specific locations on this page, right? Google won't scroll it till the end. It won't see the content that you have there. So it's important to understand that Google doesn't scroll the pages. And also, Google doesn't see the content which is rendered only in a browser versus on a server. So if all the things, all the changes, all the pages are loaded just in a browser, not on a server, Google won't be able to see this content. Okay, so how do we use the JavaScript the right way so that this situation doesn't happen? And you don't burn money and you don't kill websites. It can basically be a statement of my today's presentation: don't kill websites. First of all, what you need to do is use hreflang for, not hreflang, href attribute for internal links. That's exactly what Alida was talking about before. This is a bad example. This is not how you need to do this. This is the code from the navigation of one website I just looked at. So here, as you can see, that the link is added with an on-click event with window.location.href. And basically, it doesn't have, it doesn't follow web standards where you have an HTML attribute for href for a link, right? So don't add links using window.location, using on-click events, or using hash page URL, because it's basically not a separate URL. It's just the URL which shows the section on the page. Because these ways, for example, these ways to add links they expect that Google will interact with your content. And we already know that Google doesn't interact with your content. So here is a good example of how you need to do this, not for internal links only, not only for navigation. Well, navigation is the most critical part in this case, right? But in general on your website. Here is in the code, you will see that there is an href attribute, HTML attribute, and it has a link which Google can follow versus if it's just an on-click event, right? So this is the right way to add links to your website. The second thing, how to make sure that Google can actually see and index your JavaScript content is that, or content in general, you need to update the title tag, meta description, and main content when a new page is loaded. So you basically need to render pages on the server, not in a browser. And I already touched on this. Google doesn't see what's going on in a browser. It just sees what the server returns. Here's an example. So here is a category with a specific title tag, and then there is a link to subcategory. And by the way, the link is using the href attribute, which is the right thing to do. We just discovered this. Yeah, when there is a category and then subcategory or a product page, it doesn't really matter. And everything, including the title tag, the main content on this page, is updated on the server, and then it showed to user versus just updated in a user's browser. And the third thing that you need to understand when it comes to JavaScript SEO is that you need to make sure that rendered HTML has all main information. And when I say rendered HTML, it basically means that there is a source code and there is plus JavaScript and CSS applied. Because if you're checking just the source code to make sure that to check if if Google picks up the information on your website, you can be surprised because some things can be changed by JavaScript in the process. And in a few minutes, I'll show you such an example. But you just need to bear in mind that you need to check rendered HTML versus just source code. Just checking source code is not enough. So your rendered HTML should have the right title tag and meta description. You should also have the right canonical tag and meta robust tags, and also have the text and media content, especially main text and main media content, and structured data. With structured data, I really loved Martha's presentation at the beginning. When you have structured data on your website, it's basically for Google. It's not for somebody else. It's basically for Google. So you need to make sure that the structured data is also available in your rendered HTML. And how do you check that? Okay, Kristina, amazing. This should be available. But how do you check that? So here are some of the tools that I'm using to do that. First of all, this is a web developer Chrome extension, and I really love using it because it gives me a good idea how much a website is relying on JavaScript. What I do in this case, I just disable JavaScript and see how the page looks like with JavaScript disabled. And on the top, you see a screenshot of a page. It's actually a blank page with this text. You need to enable JavaScript to run this app. And this is not an app. This is a website. So something is clearly wrong here. because it's not just some JavaScript content. It just means that the website relies on JavaScript entirely. And the funny thing is that Google even picks up this text in the meta description. So first of all, I check how much the website is relying on JavaScript. And then the next tool that I really love is Google Mobile Friendly Test or Rich Results Tool Test. For these particular purposes of checking mobile rendered HTML, and this is important, you need to check mobile rendered HTML versus desktop because of mobile first indexing. So these tools are the same for the purposes of checking mobile rendered HTML. And when you check a page, you can see a screenshot of a page and HTML. So basically raw HTML that Google sees. If you want to check if any part of the content is available for Google to see, you can check this raw HTML and just Control F and find this content. These are great tools if you don't have access to Google Search Console, but if you do have access to it, you can use the URL inspection tool inside of Google Search Console for the same purposes. You can see the screenshot and you can see rendered HTML. One more tool that I really love is View Rendered HTML Source Chrome extension. What it does, it has 3 columns, and in the first column there is oh my god, source. There's so much code. So there is just page source, and then in the second is rendered HTML, and make sure again that you're looking at mobile rendered HTML. And in the last column, there is the difference between rendered HTML versus page source. And the green, it means that this text is added, and red means that the text is removed. This is a really, really valuable tool. Check it out. And the next tool is basically the same, but it's more user-friendly. So if you're intimidated by the code, if you don't want to look at the code too much, then there is the tool that can help you with that. It shows, in this example, it shows that for example, for the page that I was checking, there were different title tags, different canonical tags in the page source and rendered HTML. Here is an example. So the title tag in the original source code was 1, and then it was changed with JavaScript, and the canonical tag as well. In this case, the title tag and rendered and canonical tags look better than in the original source. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend relying on JavaScript execution for such important things. Okay, so when it comes to JavaScript, mission is definitely possible. And this is a screen from my favorite video with Jamie Elberica. She's going to be next, so don't leave and stay till the end. And Martin Split from Google. And Jamie is asking, is JavaScript the devil? And no, the spoiler, no, it's not the devil. And it's totally possible to make JavaScript work for your website. Here's the summary. I don't have time now to go through the summary, but it's going to be on SlideShare, so you'll check it out. It's basically everything that I was talking about today. And last but not least, instead of creating huge dollhouses and having candle holders lost there, I just started creating really small corners so that everything can be crawled by human's eye. Thank you so much. And now we'll go to the questions.
Woo! That was awesome. Thank you so much for that. Really, really great actual advice in there. So Ulrika, you know, you're an agency owner, and Vahan, you work with Search Engine Journal. What's been your experience with JavaScript? I'll maybe start with you, Ulrika.
Actually, so I have a few clients who are doing JavaScript sites this year, and I've migrated a few of them. And yeah, I think I'm
happy joy.
Website number 7 or something. Yeah, it's a hassle. Still, it's like when you get into it, it's not too hard to learn. Like it's a lot, but as soon as you understand it and understand how it works, much of it is just like straightforward. as you say, don't use events, pretty much, and make sure that everything is rendered.
Awesome. And Vahan, Search Engine Journal, my gosh, it's it's an absolute authority. What's been your experience with JavaScript?
Well, so a time ago, when we run certain type of ads, we have that are inserted by JavaScript in the content, and you can find under the featured image there is a large block of the ads, a text ad, and in the middle of the post. So before rolling out core web vitals, those blocks didn't cause much issues. They were, I mean, when JavaScript indexing was rolled out, Google started to index those text in the ads as a part of content. So what I did is inserted them in the iframe and had in the iframe HTML the tag of no index. So that helped me to avoid those ad blocks being indexed by Google. Why do we do this type of ads versus like running Google Ad Manager or any kind of like ad servers? Because we are able to avoid ad blockers. So yeah, it's a trick. And another issue is not to cause by inserting JavaScript the TLS issue. Like if you insert certain block of text or image, whatever else, in the content by the JavaScript, for example, we do that with the large banners on the top of the page. So they cause like the content go down, right? So what I do, allocating certain space by CSS with the exact image I'm going to insert. So when image loads, it just fades in the space allocated. So that is something to remember. The JavaScript can cause TLS issues.
Yeah, awesome. I'll take this next question to you, Ulrika. So Drew Malia asks, as SEOs, what do we need to know about specific JavaScript frameworks?
So I guess that you need to know which ones are out there and what they do and what kind of rendering techniques they use in order to talk to your developers and actually put the right requirements, because they use different rendering techniques, and some of like client-side rendering techniques are used. Well, you have to be very aware of them and what happens, and then what happens with the server-side rendered pages and with the pre-rendered pages, and then there's isomorphic and etc. So you need to actually to know which technique are they using for your specific website to create the right requirements, but also to have a better communication with the client or the organization if you work in-house, and have the better talk with the developers. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to be like pushed aside and not understanding what's happening, and we don't want that. And you're going to be asked to recommend things, and you need to know what to recommend then. It's the short answer.
Yeah, fair enough. Kristina,
one thing to remember.
Yeah, sorry, you go.
So just want to add something. Googlebot doesn't run service worker. So if you insert some content, do something with service worker, it will not be indexed.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. Kristina, I'll have this question go to you. When sort of like you've just onboarded a client and you're going through and you've done your conducting your technical audit, is that at the very, very start you sort of assess whether there's like JavaScript elements on the page that isn't completely going through and being rendered, or is this sort of like at a point of migration? Like what point do you sort of go and assess at scale, this type of issue?
Yeah, so I'd say that it's not only when migrating, it's for any audit of the page, audit of the website, because how Google sees the website, how Google perceives, which content can Google index actually is really important for any website and for any type of work on any stage of the website lifecycle, not only during the migration 100%. So it's like the foundation of any audit should be, can Google access the website? Can Google crawl it? Can Google index it? And can Google see the main content on the website? That basically the foundation, which should be checked in any case, no matter what you're doing for the client, no matter whether you're migrating or you just migrated. Yeah.
You shared some really, really great tools. I think.
Oops, you muted.
Yeah, sorry if I mute the laptop. The USB port kind of just messes up a little bit. I use my arm to talk. Assessing JavaScript at large. Because the tools that you shared are are phenomenal and great, and I use a large amount of them, not all of them. I'll have to check them out, but I don't know about you, but I use Screaming Frog to be able to have a look at this at scale. Screaming Frog is a fantastic feature where in the spider, you can go and look at the tab at rendering and then actually look at the Ajax timeout. And you can put that to 5 seconds because, as you mentioned before with Martin Split, 5 seconds, after which they'll kind of block those resources. So you're wanting to be able to get a good preview as to what's actually, being shown on the screen. Is there any that's kind of how I look at doing that. Do you sort of go through in piecemeal and look at different pages across the site, or what's your methodology?
Yeah, personally, me, I try to work with templates because, for example, if I'm doing an audit for an e-commerce website and it has thousands of pages, I wouldn't necessarily go to each of the product page and check it. I'll work with templates. So I usually identify the main templates that there are on the website, like product page, category page, subcategories, landing pages, static pages, and all this stuff, and then go from there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just so kind of keep that going. So when you're saying the template pages, do you mean looking at the source code of the web page and, just sort of what you're looking at and seeing what's the fetch content is? Or are you actually going into the CMS and having a look at that?
Yeah. So I'm using, don't look the source code because, as I said, it's not always a good idea because JavaScript can change something. But yeah, as you said, I'm using Screaming Frog as well, and the tools that I showed during the presentation. Yeah, I think Vahan and Ulrika might have some other ideas because I believe that I'm just repeating myself.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll take it to you guys.
I've had a lot of use of using the ngrok to open up a funnel through to my dev sites to the mobile testing tool so that I can see with the rendered page, but if the dev site is behind either IP address blocking or it's not indexed or it has a no index or blocking the robust.txt, for etc., then you can get the actual rendered content in these testing tools, or many of them. Of course, it's Screaming Frog, but so that's actually what I do, and the developers love it as well and play around with it.
Yeah, awesome. Last from you, Vahan, what's your methodology?
So I'm first of all looking at the view source HTML. Recently, I was asked to audit one website which has implemented lazy loading, but the issue was they had in the original HTML, which is rendered by server, the SRC attribute of the image, the full image path, which means browser starts compiling and loading all the images. But by JavaScript, they loaded that images again, so they have lazy loading. You know? But looking by the view source and page, had me identified they had that issue of having SRC attribute original full path. When I asked them to implement true lazy loading, the funny thing did happen. They removed SRC attribute, they inserted data SRC attribute, and no SRC attribute of placeholder at all. But if you look at it in the inspect element, by JavaScript, the SRC attribute is added, right? But Google does see image without any SRC attribute is an error, you know. So I'm starting from the view source of the raw HTML, how it is rendered.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's a really, really great place to bookmark this. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. And Vahan, I sincerely hope that you feel better soon. Thank you so much to Kristina Azarenko. As always, where can people find you? There we go. We've got it on Twitter. So if you want to ask them any questions, please go and find them on Twitter. Ask them all of your really brilliant questions. And I think that is a great way to segue to the next session.